Greatness is not a measure of how great you are, but how great others came to be because of you. On January the 17th, 1908, Constantine Cus D'Amato was born in the northernmost borough of New York City, the Bronx, in a section called Clashing Point. His Italian family immigrated from Italy to the United States in 1899. There were 8 siblings raised with him, all boys, and he was raised mostly by just his father after his mother died when he was only 4 years old. After deciding he wanted to be like his older brother Jerry, he had a short-lived career as an amateur boxer. But due to an eye injury he sustained in a street fight, or in some accounts by his own father, he was unable to obtain a professional license to box. Despite this, he never gave up the dream of being involved and influential in the world of boxing. In 1939, he opened the Empire Sporting Club with Jack Barrow at the Gramercy Gym at 116 East 14th Street off Irving Place in Manhattan. It was here that D'Amato would both live and train fighters, all while waiting for a champion to arrive. Printed on the front door of the gym was the misspelling Gramacy, which led to a dark, steep staircase which climbed all the way to the 3rd floor, and it was poorly lit. This would be a sort of rite of passage for young kids and fighters to overcome. He is quoted in the New York Times as saying, "Any kid coming here for the first time who thinks he wants to be a fighter and who makes the climb up those dark stairs," said Cus, "has it 50% licked because he's licking fear." This concept of contemplating fear and courage in the ring would have a great impact on his approach to boxing and the psychology of his fighters. He struggled and fought against the corrupt boxing commissions and clubs that were then run by the members of the mafia. His disdain and fear of the International Boxing Club of New York, or the IBC, was fueled by paranoia, and D'Amato refused to match any of his fighters in a bout promoted by the IBC. This would hinder his career and his fighters, since the IBC all but ran Madison Square Garden at that time. But eventually his resilience would pay off when the IBC was found in violation of antitrust laws and ceased to exist. His legal battle versus the IBC lasted 11 years, from 1952 to 1962, and he fought a brave and dangerous fight against the organization that had virtual monopoly by the end of the 40s. D'Amato's fight would forever influence the sport of boxing and gambling as the influence of the mafia began to fade. But during the scare from the mafia, Cus sold the Gramercy Gym for $1 and moved to Catskill, New York, with a Ukrainian woman named Camille Ewald, whom he met after the Second World War in 1945. In 1970, he opened a new gym called the Catskill Boxing Club on Main Street, right above the police office. D'Amato wanted to help troubled youth in his gym by training their minds and personalities to be strong and well-developed, so that they were not only strong fighters, but also well-adjusted and strong-willed men. He spent all his money on this goal and lived a very pious life. The thing that made Cus different from any other boxing coach that I ever met was the importance that he put on the mind, the way that a fighter thinks. He used to say boxing was 75% mental and 25% physical. He talked about the fear that a fighter has a few days before he gets into the ring. My dad used to call it butterflies, but Cus said, no, it isn't butterflies, it's fear. And he was right. He said all fighters have it. A lot of them don't understand it, but they all have it. Nobody ever explained it to me like that, and that made sense to me, so much sense to me. He used to make us memorize little sayings. One was, the mind always makes things worse than they really are. And he would use this as an example, the way a fighter thinks before a fight. When you look over in the corner across the ring, you don't see a boxer, you see King Kong. And Cuss used to say, that's just the mind making things worse than they really are. That fighter over there looking at you sees King Kong. And that has helped me so much in life, just how the mind in all areas will blow things out of proportion and make things worse than they really are. Another saying he made us memorize was, a professional does what needs to be done, no matter how he feels. When I first got up there with him, I had to get up every morning at 5 o'clock and run 5 miles. And I can remember coming back downstairs because I couldn't find the alarm clock. And he said, we don't have any alarm clocks around here. If you make up your mind that you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I must admit, after he said that, I kind of thought, this guy's crazy. He's kind of wacko. And the first few mornings, I remember waking up. I was on the 3rd floor, and there were stairs coming up there that squeaked. And I woke up hearing the stairs squeak, and I knew he was coming upstairs to wake me up. But it wasn't a few days later that every morning at 5 o'clock, I automatically woke up. And what he said was true. If you really do make your mind up that you're going to do something, you'll do it. And several years after I left Cuss and Catskill and came back to Memphis, I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning when I worked for the sheriff's department. But so many mornings I woke up right before the clock went off because I had been conditioned to wake up at 5 o'clock in Catskill, and that stuck with me for several years. Also, he would talk about the hero and the coward. In a war, you've got 2 guys in a foxhole. Explosions are going off all around them. Neither one of them want to die. They both want to live. The difference is the hero gets out of the foxhole and goes and does what needs to be done in spite of his feelings and kills the enemy and becomes a hero, where the coward had the same feelings, but he let those feelings control him, and he stayed in the foxhole, making him a coward, while the other guy, having the same feelings, got out and went and did what needed to be done and became a hero. Cuss was so smart about the mind and emotions, and he would explain them to all of his fighters. And I've never heard any other boxing coach deal with the mental aspect of boxing, and the things I learned in boxing carry over into all walks of life. And I can remember when I was up there with Cuss, he used to talk about that he was not going to live forever, and he wanted his fighters to pass the things that he had taught us on to fighters that we would coach in the future, so that his style and philosophy would always be around, because it's true and it works. So when I get a fighter, I try to talk to him about how he thinks, that boxing is 75% mental and 25% physical. And I want my students, when I'm gone, to carry it on with other students, so that Cuss's legacy never dies and can help kids for many generations. Kevin Rooney once said of him, he spent all of his money on children. His gymnasium was open 364 days a year, and at the 365th, he always organized a Christmas party for children. His suit was 20 years old, but he gave children all he had. Cuss and Camille would remain partners for the rest of his life, never having any children until they adopted Mike Tyson at 15. The Catskill Gym is still open today, but its founder and hero, Customato, passed away in 1985 on November the 4th from pneumonia. He was 77 years old. I read about Custer's death in the newspaper and called Camille to get the information about the funeral and told her that I was going to come up there and attend the service. And I flew up there, but did attend the funeral. It was really, really jam-packed, crowded. I think Ali was there. So many people that had respect for Cuss and had known him or known about him over the years. But it was very sad. He was a great man to so many people, and he really was probably the most unselfish man that I ever knew, as far as he didn't care about money. He just wanted to help kids and give his money away. That was not important to him. Ever since 1993, you can go see that on 14th Street near Irving Place, where the old Gramercy Gym was located. There is a section honoring the great trainer, which they named Customato Way. Thank you so much for listening to our introduction to Customato, the creator of Peek-aboo Boxing, and also my trainer as a professional boxer. This series will try and cover the history and the style and give an in-depth analysis of the art in his system of boxing. Please support us on Patreon. There will be a link to our page below.